I'm waiting. And we're live. Yay, that's exciting. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Facebook Live training. Today we have the amazing Rachel Extance. Hi, Rachel.
Hiya, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. So happy to have you here.
Really
It's
great to be.
great to get our speakers returning year after year, month after month, to have some regulars showing up. So it's amazing to have you here. So for those of you who don't know Rachel, I will do a quick intro, but I'm sure that Rachel will do much better intro to herself than I will do. I've known Rachel for years. We've met in Cambridge. Rachel started as a journalist, and then she started her own business doing social media, and in the past couple of years focusing primarily on helping businesses with storytelling, understand the power of storytelling. And in today's sessions, we will leverage her experience as a journalist to look at how you can use storytelling to get more PR opportunities. But there's so much to storytelling that we can touch on. So if you have any questions how to use storytelling on social media and other things, then just keep the questions going. As always, after Rachel's talk, I'll be monitoring and we'll get to all your questions. But without any further ado, I will hand over to Rachel. Rachel, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, it's great to see you all here. Thank you very much for coming along. So I'm going to be talking about what makes a story for the media, but also a bit wider about PR, because I know we get very focused on thinking about the media when people say PR, but PR stands for public relations and it is wider than that. I've got some story ideas for you, some tactics to share, and also I'll be taking you through some press release tips. So if you're wondering how you write a press release, how you pitch something to a journalist, then I will be helping you with that. So as Lenka said, I was a journalist for 15 years, working in local newspapers across the country. I was a reporter, and then I specialised in local government. I worked on the news desk, which is where we decide which stories are going to make it into the next day's paper, and then I edited newspaper websites. So from an editorial side, I've experienced quite a lot and I know what makes a story. So the first thing that you need to be aware of is that journalists need stories. We don't magically know exactly what's going on out there. We do require people to ring us up, to send us information, to have a chat with us. So if you're sitting there thinking, why don't they know about this? I'm sure somebody should be covering that. Well, once you've done a Google and checked that they haven't, then by all means, get in touch and say, hi, do you know about such and such? You know, I'd be very happy to talk to you about it. Journalists are very approachable. We talk to all kinds of people from all walks of life doing all sorts of different things. Nobody's going to say, why are you taking up my time? If you've got a genuine story, then absolutely feel free to get in touch with it and see whether it's of interest to them. Everyone has stories to tell. I work with lots of businesses who say, well, I'm not really sure I've got any stories. And, you know, I'm here at my kitchen table, or I'm working in my spare room, or out of a co-working centre, and I don't know, what have I got? Well, you have definitely got stories. You've got stories about who you are. You've got stories about what you do. You've got stories about how you help, the difference that your business makes. You've got stories about the people that you work with, stories about your values and what makes your business and what you're trying to do on a wider scale. So you've got lots of different stories that you can be telling. What makes a story? Well, when you're thinking about something for the press or for radio or TV, then news does need to be new. It needs to be something they haven't heard before. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a completely new concept, though obviously if you've got one, fantastic. But a new angle on it, a new way of thinking about it, a new approach, a new voice, a new experience. These all make news. So you are unique because you have got your own approach to doing things. You've got your own experience of the world. So don't get hung up on, oh, well, you know, I'm just me. You being you is a fantastically good thing. So what makes a story? stories have certain components, and I'm just going to run through this quite quickly, but they all need a beginning, a middle, and an end. So there should be a progression from the start to the finish. You don't want to leave people hanging. You don't want people to get to the end of your story and go, I'm not sure, was that it? What next? Or I've got these questions. So you want to make it contained so that people understand exactly what's happening and why it's happened. Stories need a character. This is the who. They need some action. Something needs to take place during it, whether that's a transformation or whether you're telling somebody about something that you've done, or whether that is genuine action. You're walking from Land's End to John O'Groats. And there needs to be a resolution. Again, you need to make it clear that you've come to the end now. And when you're thinking about the who, that needs to be relevant to the audience that is hearing it. So the who isn't necessarily you. The who could be who you help, who this is for. So don't get so caught up in thinking about it being you. And nobody's going to publish a story simply because you would like your name or your company's name in the paper or to get a mention on the radio. You need to be giving value. You need to be giving them a story which works for their audience. So stories must be relatable, whether it's for a local paper, whether it's for a national magazine, whether it's for a specialist industry publication, whether you're appearing on the radio. It must be relatable. The people reading or listening must be able to hear it and get something from it that relates to their life. And they need to create an emotional connection. Oh, I didn't know about that. Oh my goodness. Or, oh, that's something that I definitely want to go out and support. Or, oh, I'm really into baking. I definitely want to go and take part in that session that's happening. Whatever it is that you need to make whoever's hearing it feel something, make them think or make them act. So there needs to be something there beyond the bare facts. And your story for the media needs to be of interest to their audience. And this is the bit that people often miss. What is it that publication or that media outlet is looking for? Who did they serve? What are their customers interested in? So it isn't about your customers, it's about theirs. Don't wait until you think you have a story. Lots of people don't ever get media coverage because they think they have to wait until they have a thing. I need to have won an award. I need to have done something worthy of getting in the paper. You can spot opportunities, and I'm going to take you through some ways of doing this in a minute. And you can also make your own opportunities. So here I'm going to talk you through some media coverage tactics. Think of ways you can help your local newspaper, radio, TV. As I said at the beginning, journalists need stories. We need people to tell us things. We need ears and eyes on the ground. We need people from different groups to get in touch with us, different localities, people with different experiences. Because if you've ever looked at something and gone, they're only talking about that. Why aren't they talking about this? It's because they haven't got somebody to tell them about that. So that can be you. You play lots of roles. You are a business owner. For anybody running stories involving businesses, wanting experience of businesses and all of the different aspects of being a business owner. It's not just about what you do. It's also about how different things affect you. The economy, roadworks. Are people coming through with the right skills to join your business? Are you finding it difficult to get apprentices? How does your business tie into other things? We don't all operate in isolation. We're all part of a wider network of people. Is there something affecting that chain of connection somewhere? You're also an expert in your field. No matter what your business is, you can talk knowledgeably about what you do. Do they need somebody who runs a cookery school? Do they need somebody who runs a plumbing business? Do they need to know about a builder? Or do they need to know about somebody who is a mindset coach? They're thinking about something where psychology's come up and they're like, oh yeah, would love to talk to a great coach. You're a resident and you're a citizen. So you're a resident of your very local area, your ward, your district. You're a resident of your village, town, city. You're a resident of your county. You're a citizen of your country. So all of those are reasons why you know your voice counts as much as the next person's does. You might play another role in the community. You might be a scout leader, or you might be on a parent and teacher association. You could be a counsellor. Perhaps you volunteer in your spare time for an organisation. All of these things can mean that you have come from a position where you can talk about issues which affect that. You might have a hobby that's of interest to them. Do you do ultra marathons, or are you a rock climber? Do you create amazing yarn bombing installations? All of these things, art, anything like that, where they need, when you're looking through your contacts book, somebody says to you, can you find me somebody who does this? And the journalist is going to go to their contacts book and go, right, who have I got that fits the bill for that? Who has got caring responsibilities? Who has just moved into a new house? Who is in the process of expanding their company? All of these things, if they already know you and they can say, oh, brilliant, I just need to phone Sharon and she's going to help me with this, that is of use to them. So think about all of the different roles that you play and how you could use those things. What would be of value to a journalist to know about you? Because when you're in a hurry, when you're on deadline, something's coming, you need to talk to somebody who fits the bill. If they've automatically got your phone number, your email address, can get in contact, then that is fantastic. The next thing to do is to spot opportunities for coverage. There are stories coming out all the time, and you may well hear one and go, oh, that's me, or well, hang on a minute, I've got another angle on that. Think about what's coming up in the calendar. So a lot of, while a lot of journalism is done immediately, so, something breaks and you've got an hour, 2 hours, perhaps a day if you're lucky to get it done, a lot of it is also pre-planned. So thinking about things which are coming up when you could get in touch in advance and say that you've got something is really helpful. So you would have local events. Every area has its own local events. One of the ones near Cambridge is barrel rolling. There are all sorts of different things that you could get involved in. Is there a charity run taking place, or dragon boat racing, or that probably isn't happening at the moment, but things like that you could talk about. Charity events. Are you running the marathon virtually, or are you taking part in a thing that people really know about, Macmillan Coffee Mornings, something like that? National events. The budget. Whenever the budget is set, and I know that it's now not happening at the moment, but you would have a list of things that you need. I need a single person. I need a family with 2 children. I need a solo business owner. I need a company with 5 or more employees. I need somebody who is approaching retirement. All of these people that they might want to talk to, depending on what's going to come out or what they think is going to come out of the budget. People that can give their reaction. How is that going to affect you? And also relevant awareness days. So today is Lash Stylists Day. So if you're in the beauty industry, then that's something that you could be looking at. It's currently International Week of Happiness. Tomorrow is World Dream Day. So if you've got tips on how to tackle insomnia, or something else, maybe you are a dream interpreter, something that gives you an interesting angle about those sorts of things. Those are hooks that you can get coverage for. You can always pitch an idea. All you need to do is just send in an email, just say, really, really clear what it is. Idea for such and such local person, or such and such expert would like to talk to you about X. And just say, this event is going to be coming up. It's in 2 weeks' time. Would you be interested in? So, for instance, it's going to be World Comic Book Day shortly. If you're a bookseller, or perhaps you collect comics in your spare time, you could pitch to a publication that you think is relevant, whether that's a local one or whether that is a specialist publication, and say, you know, would you be interested in a fun piece about my 5 top comic book characters, or the comic book characters that aren't in films but you think really should, or comic books, or great illustrators. You know, maybe you want to do something for an art magazine, you know, comic book illustration that isn't so widely known in the public eye. These sorts of ideas. Eye-catching photos. If you are putting together a paper, one of the things that it absolutely needs is an image. You want an image on every page, something that's going to catch somebody's attention. It's not just about the words. You know, if you are a creative person, could you share something you've made? Maybe you've made something really spectacular. Going back to the comic book day, maybe a Marvel fan has asked you to make an amazing superhero cake. You could ask that client, would they mind if you shared that and put a photo of it in, with the newspaper, and see whether they would be interested in sharing a photo of it. You can, if you are involved in anything to do with animals, then you could come up with something like that. Around Halloween, I think there's a Black Cat Awareness Day. You know, have you got a whole load of black cats? And anything like this that makes a good visual image. Look for regular columns or features that you could take part in. This is where critical reading of your favourite publications comes into play. When you're reading an interview with somebody, it's worth thinking, how did they get there? How did they find that person? Do they need to find more people like that? Is there a form to fill in on the website? Is it worth getting in touch with the journalist that does it and saying, I was just curious about this. Could you just tell me, is this something that's open to the general public? If yes, if they need people, then, you know, why not throw your hat into the ring? We used to do things where we'd interview people about their favourite records. On the business section, there would be a profile of a business. You know, what do you do? All of these sorts of things where you need people to sort of step up and volunteer to do it. In one sense, it's really easy copy, and in another sense, it's really difficult because you've got to find the people. If you've got willing volunteers, that's great. So it's worth just seeing, you know, is there an opportunity like that available to you? And then the next one is newsjacking. And you might be looking at me going, Rachel, what on earth is newsjacking? This is when a story breaks and you think, I could totally contribute to that. So an example today would be, or yesterday afternoon, when the news came out about lorries having to go through customs, or having to have the right paperwork before they get into Kent. If you were a business that relies on lorry freight going through that route, then absolutely there would be journalists who would be interested in talking to you about it. There's, on a lighter note, there's a story today about the government backing gap years for students who missed out on university places because of the A-level problems. Did you go on a gap year? Did going on that gap year completely change the course of your life? Perhaps you met somebody. Perhaps that's how you came to start your business, and you never bothered going to university because you discovered that you could do something else. Look for these opportunities. If you can listen to something like the Today programme, if you get the first bulletin at 6 a.m, and then you can think about, right, who is likely to be following this up? Is it a story where every single local newspaper in the country is going to be saying, we've got somebody local who could talk about that thing? And they're looking for somebody. If you can be on the phone when they start work at 7 or 7:30 in the morning saying, hi, I've just heard this thing on the radio and I'm a whatever it is. Would you like to have a chat about this? Chances are, if that's something that's just gone down on their news list, they're going to be like, oh, thank goodness, that's brilliant. It's not always going to work. They may well have a whole load of other people. They might have already started doing it the night before, because sometimes we know about things before they're available to the general public. But there's no harm in giving it a go. If you just have a brief 30-second conversation and they say, no, I'm really sorry, we're covered for that, thanks, or no, we're not taking on that story, well, then but at least you've had a go. So you might be thinking, okay, well, that's all fair enough, but I don't know about this. Have you got any other ideas? Well, yes, I have. What have you achieved that others will find interesting, inspiring, or entertaining? Now, this can be news. So yes, if you have developed something that's going to benefit people in a particular area, then get in touch and tell them that. If you've won an award and you think that that's going to be something of interest to a wider group of people, then absolutely get in touch with that. If you've done something inspiring, have you overcome the odds to achieve something? Or have you been growing your company? Have you managed to create opportunities for other people? And also, don't discount being entertaining. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing something entertaining. A few years ago, we ran a story where hay bale minions had appeared by the side of one of the roads. And they looked absolutely fantastic. And of course, then it was, who's made these things? This is really cool. So don't discount something like that. One of the things that I've enjoyed watching on social media during lockdown has been, I don't know whether you've seen her, but there's a cellist who records herself playing all of the different elements of famous theme tunes. And she ends up with like this grid of 8 for different versions of her, all playing it together like an orchestra, but it's just her. Now, anything like that, which, enables you to just get a little bit of a window into your world, something that makes people smile, that provides an opportunity for somebody to talk to you about who you are and what you do and how did you create that thing. So don't discount something that you just think is a bit fun. There's someone local to me, Neil Bradua from Cambridge Fruit Company, and he wrote on Twitter, it was like a throwaway comment on Twitter about how much he didn't like grapefruit, and somebody challenged him to eat one. And he ended up raising several hundred or possibly even a couple of £1,000 for charity. And that just sprang out of almost nowhere. He just put this throwaway comment on Twitter and it grew. So there were all sorts of different things that can just suddenly, he didn't set out to do that. That wasn't deliberate. It happened purely organically. But these sorts of things can help you. So think about, are you putting on an event? Are you creating a way in which people can come together? Have you got a new way in which people can come together? At the moment, we're all thinking about these different aspects of our lives. Are you taking part in an event? Are you speaking at a conference? Have you been invited to go to a thing? Again, it's a story for people that are interested in that area of your life. Is your business supporting a cause? Are you collaborating with anyone to make a difference or to create something new? It's always interesting when businesses get together, when they see those collaborative opportunities, and that sparks something off, and suddenly you've got an event, or you've created a cause or a campaign almost out of nowhere, but because you got together and poured your resources and had that idea, and suddenly you've gone off and made something new that's of interest to people. And one that often gets overlooked is there a storyline in a TV show or a story doing the rounds on social media that you could tap into? So if everybody's talking about a thing, and that's a thing that you do or a thing that you know about, then that can be a story for you. If there was a storyline on, say, EastEnders about somebody who's a hoarder, and you run a decluttering business, then you could say, we've all watched as Sammy has struggled with X. These are my top 5 decluttering tips, or what to do if you need to. At the moment, we've all been in our houses for several months now. I'm certainly looking around at mine and thinking, what can I get rid of? How do I get rid of that? How do I organise that? People may well be looking at spaces in their homes and thinking, I'd love to redesign that, and I don't really know how. Could you pitch a story about how to do that to somebody? Anything like that that helps someone who's suddenly realised that they've got an issue and they would like to come up with a solution for it, and you are there to do that for them. And that links into the next one, which is to share your opinion or your expertise. We need voices. We need to hear different people's voices, different people's experiences. If there is something where you have expertise that you could share regularly, that you could help with, whether that's small business advice or whether that's how to do something in your home that people struggle with, or parenting, or any of these different things, find out whether or not they've got somebody who does that. Is that an area that they would be interested in? Could you help? And if they don't want to hear from you regularly, you just say, could I be added to your list of people you approach when you have got stories like this, please? They're not going to ring you every week, but when they do have something, and again, they're opening that contacts book, they're thinking, who on earth can I talk to about gardening, how to turn your small garden into an allotment, or whatever it is. They look down that, yes, I've got Mary. She's absolutely going to help me with this. Before you pitch, you need to check out the publication or the TV or radio station that you are pitching to. Don't just blindly approach people, because while journalists are very happy to hear from you, they do want to know that when they pick up the phone, it's going to be something of interest to them. So do your homework. What topics does that publication or station cover? What kinds of things are they interested in? Because there's no point going to them with a story which is not relevant to their audience at all. You need to know what they cover. Have they had a similar story recently? So if they have, they might not be interested. So if you think about, the story that I just told about hoarders and you help with organisation, well, okay, they might not be interested in that particular story. So you might want to look elsewhere. Or you might want to think, okay, they've done that recently. What could I do from a different angle to help do that? So could I do something about how to avoid getting into that situation in the first place? Have you just cleaned your house from top to bottom, and now you're looking around it and going, oh, there's stuff everywhere again? How do you avoid that? How do you break that cycle? That could be a different story that you could pitch on the same subject. So either look elsewhere or think about how you could just skew it a little bit to give it a different angle. Who is the best person to contact? You don't want to find yourself talking to the wrong journalist. So when you've decided on who you're going to pitch it to, you're like, yeah, I've checked, this definitely fits my thing. When you open up a newspaper or a magazine, look for the bit that has contact details. It will say this section editor is, and it will give you names. Alternatively, you can look at bylines. If you're looking online, they may well have clickable bylines that will say, such and such so-and-so is our such and such editor. You could even ring and ask, don't be afraid of picking up the phone and speaking to a receptionist and saying, hi, I've got a story for your health and beauty section. Could you just tell me who the right person is to send that to, please? And also find out when their deadlines are. Magazines have long lead times. So Christmas gift guides, those would be started work on in August, which I know sounds crazy, but it takes a long time to put a magazine together. A lot of it's done in advance. The publication that you're looking at might be weekly. So find out, when does it go to press? Because you don't want to miss that opportunity for coverage. If you've got an event on next week and you get in touch with them as they're going to press, or worse, the day after they've gone to press, you're not going to get that coverage. So think about when that is. And also bear in mind that there are certain bits of a publication which would be done a lot sooner, because there are easy wins that you can do early in the week those would be done and dusted on the day 1 or 2, because by day 5, 6, 7, you're frantically trying to get the news, because the news needs to be new. It needs to be the news. It needs to be something that people haven't heard about before when the publication hits the newsstand. So think about the bits of the paper which don't necessarily need to have that news kind of thing, that can be more opinion, or can be more lifestyle kind of content, because they are likely to be working on that a lot earlier on. A lot of journalists are freelance. You will find increasingly nowadays that papers and magazines don't have as many what are known as staff as people that they employ directly. So there are thousands of freelance journalists out there. Most of them are on Twitter, and a lot are also on Instagram, particularly if they're writing about lifestyle topics. So it's worth having a look on both of these. So you can find their contact details just by going onto Twitter or Instagram. Go to the search bar on Twitter, type in the name of the publication you are looking for, or follow the Tweety Bird button on their website and find their Twitter handle. And you're going to do this because their Twitter handle isn't always obvious. So for instance, I live in Cambridge. Our daily paper is the Cambridge News, but their Twitter handle is @CamsLive. Red Magazine is, I think, Red Mag Daily. Some of them are obvious. Some of them do their names, but some of them, they've had to truncate it or come up with workarounds. Maybe the handle for their name had already been taken by somebody, so they've gone for something else. So you want to go and find their Twitter handle, and then you want to put that Twitter handle in the search box and click on people. See who comes up. Are you going to get names of journalists who write for that publication? You might get people who are past journalists from that publication who have gone on elsewhere, which could also be useful if they've gone to the Press Association or something. That might also be useful. But they might have left altogether. They might have gone off and done something different. So check their profile, check they are still doing that job, Google them, make sure they are who you are looking for. And then you can just, either get into conversation or say, I've got a story about X, is that of interest to you? Remember that they're people. Remember that they get lots and lots and lots of requests every day. So it's best just to sort of find out who they are and just see whether or not you can get in touch with the story idea. Keep it short, keep it to the point. And if they say they're not interested, well, fine. And also bear in mind that they will have got an inbox full of things. They may well not see your message. They may well not be able to reply to you individually. Don't be downhearted about it, but don't keep hounding them about it, because you're just adding to the volume of things that they've got to deal with. So you've researched your publication. You've got your story. How are you going to send it in? So press release tips. Think about how you would tell your story in one sentence. And this is a really great exercise to think about in all areas of talking about your business, whether you're thinking about what you're putting on your homepage, what you're putting on your sales pages, what is the takeaway people can get. If you read nothing else but the first line of it, would you understand what you were talking about? So that's your introduction. Can you get it across? I often say in 12 words or less, because, such and such so-and-so is doing this thing to benefit X. It's really clear what that's about, and you can decide immediately if that's relevant to you. What does the reader need to know? Make sure you've answered the key questions. Who is it about? What is it about? Where is it taking place? Why is it taking place? When is it taking place if it's an event? How is it taking place? And those things will, the importance of those things will depend on your story. So if the who really matters, Madonna is playing a concert in aid of local charity such and such. Wow, the who really matters. But if that's not the case, then you can put the who a bit lower down and focus on what the thing is, who is it for, and what's the benefit to them of it. If it is about an event, check you've included where it is happening, the date and the time, and also include a finishing time if it's something that's going on all day. There are two reasons for this. One, for the general public, they don't want to turn up right at the end as you're packing up. And two, if it's for, say, a local paper or radio station, they may well have a list of events taking place and have you on the list as something that they could go and take a photo at. Again, they want to turn up at the right point. They will probably ring you and ask you. But if they don't, if they're just like, oh, could you just, if they say to the photographer, oh, could you just pop into the so-and-so on your way between this job and this job, because it, you know, and just get a couple of photos. Again, they do not want to turn up after they've missed the thing. So make sure that they know what the finish time is as well as the start time. Once you've finished writing your press release, take a break, go and get a cup of coffee, whatever it is. Come back to it and read it through. Ask yourself, would this make sense if I didn't know the topic? If I knew nothing about who these people were, I didn't know anything about what this cause was, I didn't know anything about where this place was, whatever it is that you've written about, would I understand what it was? Would I be interested? Because it's very easy when you know something to put in things which somebody who doesn't know about it is looking at going, what on earth is that? I've never heard of that. I don't know what it is. You don't want people to be running off to Google. You want people to have what they need directly in there. If you've ever been at an event or a family gathering or talking to a friend and they've told you this story and they keep saying, and Bob did this and Bob did that, and you're sitting there thinking, I've got absolutely no idea who Bob is. Tell people, you know, make sure that it's clear to people who you are talking about, what the story is. Don't suddenly go off at tangents. Keep it concise, keep it to the point. Ask yourself, does this need to be in here? Does it add to the story or does it detract from it? Does it take me off to somewhere completely different? Include a quote. Quote yourself if you're the organizer, if you're the business owner, whatever it is, you know, what will they say? What will they hear? What will they do? Or explain why what you're doing matters. I'm really passionate about helping people to do X, or I went through a stage where I was experiencing so-and-so and now I really want to do this, or our garden fete is going to be the most amazing thing because we're going to have a helter-skelter and a bouncy castle and such and such so-and-so who makes the best fairy cakes is going to be there, whatever it is. Have a quote. If it's not something you're running, ask somebody else who is taking part to give you a quote as well. Maybe if you're running an event, you could have ask a speaker if they'd like to contribute a quote as well. Also include a photo. Again, go back to my earlier point, we need photos. It's not just about the words. Photos are a great way of bringing somebody into your story. If you can, attach a landscape and a portrait, not backs of people's heads. Don't send a 5 megabyte file. Don't send something that's like 10 kilobytes or something really tiny that when you put it on a page, it's just not going to do anything. So you want a happy medium, but think about it like you would do if you were putting a photo on your website. You don't want something gigantic that's going to mess up with the load time, and you don't want something which is going to really pixelate. So you're looking for that small file size, but something that's useful and that illustrates your story. Include your contact details, including out of hours. This is so important because when somebody's working through things, maybe late at night, they've got to your press release, they're trying to fill a hole in the paper, and they read it and they go, I just need to check that detail. And they might call you at 9 o'clock at night. They might call you at 10:30 in the morning. Whenever it is, they need to know they're going to get to you. Because if they don't, that could mean that your story doesn't end up going in because they couldn't answer that particular question and they move on to the next one. Make your subject line on your email something really obvious. So just like you did when you were pitching a story idea, don't try to be clever with the wordplay. I know people get hung up on headlines. That's down to the sub-editors to worry about the headlines. That's not your job. Your job is to show the journalist that you are sending them information that is relevant to their audience and a good story. Cambridge company first to create invisibility cloak. whoa. Tech company helps school children to code. If you're sending that to a tech magazine, they know that's definitely for them. You're sending it to an education magazine, they know that's definitely for them. If you're sending it to a parenting website, they know it's definitely for them. Sewing classes launched to combat fast fashion. It appeals to me if I am wanting to learn to sew. It appeals to me if I'm concerned about the environment. It appeals to me if I am looking to deal with fashion. I'm looking for new ideas to dress up my wardrobe. So make it clear to them that it definitely is going to appeal to their audience. Another thing that you can do is check out the journo request hashtag on Twitter. This is a mine of opportunities. You do need to do some wading through. You will see many of these that you're like, no, that isn't me, but you might see one that is. So these are 3 that I spotted last night. Somebody who's working on a story for The Sun, someone working on a story for the Sunday Times, and someone who is a freelance journalist who was looking for working on a story about working from home. So you can always ask them, if it isn't clear what publication, you can always ask them, you can say, yes, I can do this. I'm a so-and-so with this experience. What publication is this for? They will often not have their direct messages open, so you can reply directly to them and say, hi, I'm such and such. I do this thing. I am relevant because. So make it really clear that you can answer their question. They do not want people to go, well, I kind of think about this, or, well, I'm not sure this is the story. They want to hear from people who are absolutely the case study that they are looking for. And again, please be mindful of their time and the fact that if something doesn't quite work for you, well, move on past it, because there might be something that does work for you another time. But it's also a useful way of you saying, okay, this person posts requests about these sorts of topics. I'm noticing a pattern here. What have I got? What could I do? How could I pitch a story to them that fits with the topics that they write about, and then tailor something to them that they could be interested in? So you've got 2 different things that you can apply to the journal request directly if it fits you, or you can use it as part of your research and then think about what's a story that I could pitch to this person. Other PR opportunities. As I said at the beginning, PR is not just about getting yourself in the press. It is public relations. This is anything which involves you having a relationship with the public. So there are lots of other things that you could do. Find organisations that would like to talk about your work. Networking groups. If people at Lenka who want somebody who can talk about different topics. Optimists, any kind of group that needs someone who can talk knowledgeably about a topic. The WI, could you go along and do a demonstration? Could you teach them something? These are great PR opportunities. You could pitch yourself as a podcast guest, or find Facebook groups like this one that need speakers. You go in, and often people will say, I'm looking for a such and such, but they might not. You might have been in a Facebook group for a while and be thinking, I could really help them with this topic. Why not ask them? You're part of their community. If you are pitching to be on a podcast, it really helps if you've been listening for a long time, or you've certainly done your homework, you've taken the time to listen. Get in touch, tell them why you love it, tell them what you can offer their audience, and see if they are interested. Join Twitter chats. These are still a thing. They are alive and well. See if there's a Twitter chat that ties in with your interest or something to do with business. And again, it's a way of getting your name out there in that community. It's all about being part of a community. You could run a challenge to help your audience achieve a goal. What is it that you could teach people over 5 days that gets them a little bit further along in what they're trying to do? And that's really great for public relations and for building your own community. Perhaps you'd like people to come onto your mailing list, or you'd like people to come into your Facebook group. Your company values and your customer service boost PR. So think about how you are showing up, what you are saying, what messages are you giving out. Is sustainability a key part of how you do business? Do you work with people in a particular circumstance to help them? What are the things that beyond what you offer, the fringe benefits, the additional things that you do that make your company uniquely yours? As Zig Ziglar said, you will get all you want in life if you help enough of other people get what they want. Or put another way, be helpful and kind, including to journalists. I hope you found that useful. And if you would like any more storytelling tips, then I share lots of advice, ideas, inspiration over on Instagram. So if you'd like to come and give me a follow.
Yay, that was amazing, Rachel. Lots and lots to learn from. Thank you so much for your time. I will go through the questions we've received. Most of them answered as you went, which is fantastic to just see that.
That's always helpful.
You talk about it. So the first one was from Matthew, who said, do you agree that great stories also need great pictures?
Absolutely.
Especially if you're looking to get something published in the press? So that's something
definitely. And this is something to think about, is, if you haven't got a photo yourself and you've got something, maybe you've pitched your story and a journalist has said to you, yes, I'm definitely interested. Maybe it's a profile piece of you. Definitely worth getting a good quality photo of yourself done. If you know you're going to get a double page spread all about you, yes, get a good photo of yourself done. If you are running an event and that paper's photographer can't make it to you, then see whether or not there is somebody who'd come along and take a couple of photos for you. But yeah, absolutely, make use of photos, because they really do make a difference. And it is one of, if you've ever been trying to fill a page and going, really need an image, and you're frantically looking through and you're like, no, that's got the back of a head, no, that doesn't go with that story, no, we can't put that on there. Absolutely, having something that you can put in that slot is fantastic.
Yeah. Then when we talked about finding stories in our business, James had a comment being like a light bulb moment. That's a LinkedIn post, is a phrase that they often share in the office when talking. Do you have any tips on kind of realizing, or kind of questions people can ask, things people can pay attention to get these light bulb moments to be like, that's a story?
Yeah, definitely. So think about what you've done in, say, the last week, last month, and what often things will sort of come to you when you're not really thinking about it. So I'm going to answer this two different ways. So one is, have a notebook or somewhere where you just jot down things that you've been doing. Who have you worked with recently? What problems did they have? What breakthrough did you have? Or what did you do that you thought, actually, that's of use to a wider audience, and that would help them see what I do for them. So that's one way of doing it, is keep a running list of different ideas. And the other one is to chat to people about what you're doing, in terms of, if you've got people that you do work with, then fantastic, you can have that kind of camaraderie. If you're on your own, weirdly, things like going out for a walk can suddenly make you go, oh, hang on a minute, because your brain's sort of processing what you've done on the day, and you might suddenly go, oh, such and such, that makes a story. And they can be about things which don't necessarily feel like they're to do with business to start with. So a story that I told recently was about watching Alice in Wonderland with my kids. And in one of those kind of, when you've kind of got half an eye on something, and then there was a bit in it about how do I get to the party? Well, by invitation. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, that's so like business. It's not that you're waiting to be invited to take an opportunity. As I said, don't wait to have a story. Come up with an opportunity yourself, or spot an opportunity. Don't wait for something to come to you. You go and take it to the thing. So I wrote a post about that. So, there were all sorts of different things. Everything is a content opportunity. It really is. Doing your housework can be a content opportunity. Doing your bills can be a content opportunity. Whatever it is that you think about, that you go, other people will share this experience and I can help them with this. For your LinkedIn post, for your email marketing, anything like that, that you can go, yes, that's going to chime with somebody else's experience, or that's a good life lesson, or that's a way that I could get somebody to think about this topic, which they maybe don't think is relevant to them, but actually if I use this as an analogy, then it will be relevant to them.
Yeah. You also touched on this. Marky was asking, what is the lead time for some of the kind of coverages that you were mentioning?
This is where you really need to do your homework. You need to find out what the lead time is. There's no harm in ringing up and asking and just saying, could you just tell me when your deadline is? Or I've got an idea for such and such. A, is this of interest? B, when would you need to hear from me by? If you are thinking about Christmas stuff, I know it sounds mad, but get in contact now, because that is one of those things. Even daily papers do not want to be doing Christmas stuff in the last 2 weeks before Christmas. They want it sewn up. They want it done and dusted. That's easy material that they can have written in advance and they just have to slot onto the pages, because people want to be going home. They want to be doing other things. They don't want to be writing Christmas features. It can all be done in advance. So things like that do get in. And also things where there's going to be a lot of competition. You are not going to be the only business which is doing something funny for children in need. You are not going to be the only business which is taking part in Red Nose Day. You are not going to be the only business which is doing a Macmillan coffee morning. Let them know that you're going to be doing it. Say that you can get them a photo. Ask them when they need the photo by. Is that 10 o'clock in the morning? Yes, we will absolutely. We solemnly swear we will have a quote from our manager and a photo of us with you by 10 o'clock in the morning. The person putting together that spread goes, yes, fantastic, I've got one. And yeah, so it is worth just checking. I would say scout whether or not something is going to be of interest 2 weeks in advance, because then they can put that on their list and they know that they've got it. And that's a massive help.
Yeah. Then we had an interesting question from Timothy. I'm not sure I 100% get it, so hopefully you will get it. He's asking, our business partners are particularly interested in press through us. Not sure what us means. Is there a method to approaching including our partners when writing a press release so it's not so on the nose?
I'm not entirely sure what that means, but if you're writing a press release and your business partners want to be included, then put a quote in from them.
Yeah. Cool. There was an interesting question about journal requests. Is there a way to apply for filter to the region?
You can. There is a near me button, although I did try it last night and it didn't really work very well. I'm afraid it is just a case of having to plow through them. And yeah, there were, obviously, because I'm in the UK, I'm not very interested in replying to journal requests for American publications. There were quite a lot of American publications in there. You will also get adverts. You also get people using it who are not journalists. And this is why it's so important that you check out who has put this tweet in, where are they from, what are they doing, what publication is this for. You don't want to put in a whole load of effort talking to somebody and then find out that it's of no use to you whatsoever. People, as well as thinking about the fact that you are doing a story for their audience, that audience does also need to have some people that are of interest to you. So if you are finding yourself in a publication and nobody that's likely to become a customer of you is reading that publication, that's not a good use of your time. So it is very well worth you thinking about, who is this for? Why do they want to know it? What have they written about before? Can I see some of their work? So yes, do your homework. And I'm afraid it is a case of just plowing through. There are things on Twitter where you can say, I'm not sure whether or not you can do, but certainly you used to be able to say within a 15-kilometer radius or something like that. But one of the problems that you run up against is, does Twitter know that you definitely are where you are? Or does it think you're in a different part of the country where maybe your internet server is based? So that can be a tricky thing. So yeah, I'm afraid, like everything, it is one of those things where you just have to do your homework.
Yeah. I would say that potentially there is a way to use Twitter Advanced Search. where you can add a lot of things. So you can
Oh,
add,
that does still exist.
it still does exist. So it's kind of twitter.com//advanced. And then it allows you to pick the words. Obviously, you would, under the hashtags, you would add the journal request hashtag. If you want to exclude certain words, if you want to include certain words. It doesn't allow the location from what I've seen. It allows for certain accounts, which is helpful if you've already done your research and you know which publications and journalists you actually are interested in. So you can add them in here. There are certain filters in the popularity, and the one quite interesting I found is the date range. So you can filter a little bit through the advanced search. But yeah, that's pretty much as I can add to this.
Yes, that's the other thing. These things will go very quickly. Likely they are trying to fill a spot for tomorrow or a spot for publication next week. So if you are the 50th person to get onto that thread, highly unlikely, or if you're replying 2 days after it's gone out, it's highly unlikely you're going to benefit from doing that. The other thing to do is a Twitter list. You can create a private Twitter list of your favorite journalists, and you just run your eye down that and think about that. Do think about all sorts of things. Are you a member of the Federation for Small Businesses? Are you a member of something else with an industry publication? Don't discount things like that, because they absolutely need to hear from business owners.
Yeah. We had a question prior to the session from people who were interested, and Saskia was asking that they like to learn how to make the insights they gather from research more relatable and how to present them in an interesting way.
So think about who is going to be reading this. If you're talking to a member of the general public about your research, then you want to think about, right, what is the thing that makes this relatable to their life? What is it that they're going to look at and go, oh, that's really interesting, that applies to me, or that applies to a friend, or I could use that in this. So focus on that. Really, the human angle, as much as you possibly can do. You want to have people in it, because that's who we're interested in. That's the stories that we want. We want things that we can relate to and that do create that emotional connection. There are lots of different ways of talking about research. I'm not sure I could do it on this Facebook Live, but that's my tip to start off with, is to focus on the human angle of it and thinking about, why does somebody need to know about this? And for an image, if you've got a nice photo of the researchers, if you've got an image of you maybe in action, or can you come up with an image that relates to the situation that you are talking about?
And one last question. Phil had an interesting question, which I think would be nice to close it up with. He was asking, are there any cardinal rules to effective storytelling?
Are there any cardinal rules to effective storytelling? It must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it must have people, and something needs to happen. And it needs to be self-contained. And your stories can run into one another. But it needs to be that, when you've heard that anecdote, when you've got that lesson, you understand that, yes, you've heard a story. And a lot of it is experimentation, playing around, seeing what works. But certainly if you're thinking about the media, then, it needs to be clear to somebody what this is about. And do I feel that I don't have any additional questions at the end? One thing that I didn't say that I should have said, once you've sent your press release in, please don't ring up and say, hi, did you get my press release? If you haven't heard and you're thinking, this thing's on Saturday and I'd really like to know if they're going to cover it, you could do, hi, I sent in this and I'm just calling to see if you need any more information. And, that's just a way of getting into that, but in a non-hassling, chasing up kind of a way.
So what is the rule for chasing up? Like, how often can I send a news story if they don't pick up my story? How often can I chase up? Where is the line between being annoying to just persevere and try and really put the effort in?
If you have got a genuine story, then absolutely Don't feel afraid to ring up and say, I sent this in. I think it's really interesting to your audience. Could I just have a chat to whoever that it's gone to? And there's nothing wrong with that. It might be that they haven't got to it yet. It might be that it's on their list. They might say to you, oh yeah, I'm literally just writing that. Or they might say, I'm really sorry, we haven't got space this week. Or they might say, it doesn't fit because X, if they have the time to. There is no reason why you can't send in press releases. If you've got lots and lots of news, you're doing something new every week, you might get a bit of eye rolling. It might be, oh, it's so and so again. But I think you probably wouldn't have a story every week. You might have a story once a month. And if you're varying the publications that you're sending things through, so again, do think about who is the market for this. So I'm not going to say to you, don't send in stories, but also don't expect them all to get picked up. You might be lucky. And it might, they're always interesting people. I would say that one thing that is well worth doing is get to know the journalist who specialises in your area. If you're looking at local, get to know the journalist that specialises in your area and tell them that you're always happy to hear from them. That way you're not chasing them, but they've got your contact details and they can call you when they've got a story that they will benefit from your insights. So that's a nice way of doing it where you're not hassling them, but you've introduced yourself, you've had a chat, and you've said, yes, I can help you with this. And they've gone, brilliant, that's great. They've got a note of you and they will get in touch with you if they need to. There are all sorts of reasons why people get called, all sorts of reasons why stories go in. Don't feel offended if you don't get the coverage. Don't feel, oh, they really don't like me. There are just so many different factors at play, and often it can be who picks up the phone first. So it's just a case of trying and being helpful. Really do focus on is this helpful to them? Or do I think they're likely to be doing this? If so, yes, by all means get in touch. And do go into it with a spirit of generosity, not in a spirit of, I want my business name in the paper. How do I get my business name in the paper? Because that's less likely to be effective.
Amazing. Thank you so much. What an hour. So many great tips and tricks and advice on using storytelling and getting press coverage and finding the right journalist to build relationships and be helpful to. So thank you everyone for staying here with us. Thank you for your comments and questions, and a huge shout out and thanks to Rachel for giving up her time and her amazing knowledge.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you guys. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.